Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class, we are looking at paper 3 solution for the latest IB Psychology curriculum 2025 onwards, which will be first assessed in 2027. Today's class is for HL students only because this is for paper 3. If you're an SL student or if you're interested in solutions to papers 1 and 2, I've already uploaded those videos on my channel, so you can check out the IB Psychology playlist on my channel. Okay, so coming to paper 3 solution, we are going to look at model answers for the specimen paper officially released by the IB for paper 3, and through these model answers I will explain to you how you should think about the questions, how you should meet mark scheme requirements, how you should strategize and organize your answers, what content you should cover in them. So the objective is not to make you memorize these model answers, but to make you learn how to write answers to any questions that come on paper 3. Before I begin with the lesson, I want you to know that I am a private IB psychology tutor, teaching students from across the globe, helping them get their grade 7s from more than 10 years now. So if you need classes for IB psychology, you can contact me. My email ID and contact number are available in the description box and pinned comment below. Okay, now let's begin with today's lesson. For paper 3, you need to know your research methods unit very well. So, everything right from the types of research methods available to data analysis for both quantitative and qualitative data. Make sure you have a background in all of that before you begin with this video, because only then you will be able to understand what we are doing here. Also, you need to have knowledge of the content as well, like beyond research methods, because for the last question that we are going to look at, you are expected to go beyond what is given in the paper to what you've learned in the textbook, and to combine both the information given here as well as from the content that you've learned to write the last essay answer that comes. Okay, let's look at the first question in the paper. They tell us answer all the questions below. Refer to source 1 to answer question 1 and sources and accompanying resource booklet to answer questions 2 to 4. The sources have been collated to assess the claim that the use of technology in education may have a negative impact on mental health of students. This is very, very important. So, my very first advice to you is please read the claim very carefully. Only you have understood the claim perfectly, then only move ahead to read any sources. Don't gloss over the claim and then come to the sources. So, before moving ahead, think in your own mind, what have you understood? What is the claim or the proposal that is being made here? What they are saying is technology has come into education. In your HL content, you've learnt about technology, and that they believe is having negative effect on what? Mental health of students. That is getting impacted because of technology. So, in my own words, what I would think is there is something bad which is happening to the mental health of students, or somehow students are getting mentally disturbed or challenged because of technology. That is what these sources are going to try and support. Once I've understood this, then only I will start looking at source 1. If I'm going to blindly get into source 1 without fully knowing what the claim is, I won't be able to make sense of it. So now let's see what is there in source 1. There is a figure. I'll put the full figure on the screen. At any time, if you need to refer to the material in this video or any of the answers written, please pause and take a screenshot. I will try to upload all the model answers as on this video on my website, but that can take some time. So in the meanwhile, just take screenshots for future reference. Now, whenever it comes to any figure, any graph that is given basically, or any table, you have to read everything given around that graph or that table very carefully. Why I'm emphasizing on this is students will just look at the main graphical content, just the bars which are given, for example. You have to begin by carefully reading the title first, looking at what is given on the x-axis, y-axis, key, scale, everything, and then only you will be able to understand what is on the graph. So step 1, read the title very carefully. It shows the effect of Healthy and unhealthy work life balance on student mental health, specifically on levels of anxiety and depression. Again, whenever you read anything, speak it out in your mind before you go ahead. Put it in your own words. Make sure you've comprehended what is there in front of you. Then only come to the next section. Think of it as a part by part understanding that you have to do throughout the paper. So, after you've read the figure name, ask yourself peacefully, takes only a few seconds, what is this figure about? Only if you can answer this question, then go further into the figure. So, what is this figure about according to me? This figure is showing somehow work life balance, means how students balance between their studies and their personal life, whatever affairs they have in that, how that affects their mental health. Specifically, does that increase the anxiety and depression in some way? Like, expectedly, if there's something unhealthy in the work life balance, say they're not able to balance, maybe it would increase anxiety and depression. So, I can expect the graph to show something like that. And if it is healthy, then these things should remain low. So, okay, I'm getting what the point they're trying to make here and what the graph must be about. Now, I will come to the graph. Whenever we look at a graph, first we should read what is on the x axis, the horizontal one. Work life balance is represented here. On the left side, there are two bars representing unhealthy work life balance, and on the right, two bars representing healthy work life balance. Next, I must read what is on the y axis, the vertical one. Percentage of students have been given here, but there are two bars, so along with what is on the y axis, I'll have to see the key also to understand what is being represented exactly. The darker graphs, which are the bars, which are there, like the dark shaded ones, they are representing anxiety, and the light gradient shade ones, they are representing depression. So now, if I read the graph, I can read, for example, that those who have unhealthy work life balance, their percentage of anxiety tends to be 56. Those who have unhealthy work life balance, again, their percentage of depression tends to be 55%. Okay. In the same way, now I will read what about healthy work life balance. Those who have healthy work life balance, their percentage of anxiety tends to be 24%. And those who have healthy work life balance, again, their depression tends to be 21%. When I read the title only, I was expecting that those who have healthy work life balance, they will have lower anxiety and depression than the ones who have unhealthy. That is indeed the case. That I can see only on inspection of the bars also. The height is much lower for the healthy group rather than the unhealthy group. But because of the percentage that they've given so finely, I can see exactly how much difference is there. About half a difference is there. Like, percentage is almost half lower for the healthy group. Now, what is the question here? This is a semi-static question, in the sense the question is going to be always about what limits the interpretation of the source. Why we can call it semi-static is because the title and the source, exactly the graph, differs in every paper, but the question is going to be worded in the same way. Now, there are many things which can limit the interpretation of data, as you must have learned in your coursework. I can't get into all of it, but I can give you a few examples before we see the model answer. What all can limit interpretation is there any information about error? Like, I don't see any error bars on this graph. Is there any information about operationalization? How have these variables been measured which are on the graph? Again, I don't see any information about that. Like, no doubt percentage of students frequency is there on the y-axis, but what is this healthy and unhealthy exactly? No information on how it has been measured. There's no text to describe it either. Other issues can be any significance that has been reported. Okay, there is a difference in anxiety and depression between the unhealthy and healthy groups. But is this a significant difference or not? I can't come to know just from the bar graph. If there were some error bars, I could have checked their overlap to at least estimate the significance, or if even better, if there were some probability values. Then I could have been able to judge exactly whether the results are significant or not. Like I told you, there can be very many issues. These are the most relevant generally. So now how do we have to phrase the answer? We just take any one of them. Like, yeah, I can take operationalize, easiest one to define here. I can write about error bars and all, but I would say similar difficulty. Let's take operationalization because students will find it easier. overlap and error bars can be a little confusing for some students. Okay, if you are writing about it, you could just say something like, if error bars were represented and if there was no overlap between them, then we could be confident that there is a significant difference between healthy and unhealthy groups in terms of anxiety and depression that can be applied to the entire population and is not restricted to only this sample. So you can put it that way. Right now, we look at operationalization, how you should structure the answer once you've decided which floor you're taking is. It's worth 3 marks. Don't make it very long. Try to stick to 3 sentences. I'll give that as a rule of a thumb. In the first point, name what is the issue that you're taking up. In the second point, give an example. In the sense, link it to what is given. Students have a bad habit, they'll say, it isn't mentioned how the variables are operationalized. Which variables? In this scenario, which variable are you talking about? What do you mean by operationalized? Give some concrete example. Like if it was operationalized, what we should have seen on the graph. So make it relevant to the context which is given here about anxiety, depression, work life balance. Finally, just conclude off by like specifying exactly what is the problem coming because of this. So given that this feature has not been represented on the graph, what is the issue that is coming up? Just mention that in the end. So this structure you can follow. Normally we call it a peel structure. Point, we make a point as to what is the issue here, that is known as making a point. Then E, we explain and like give an example that is relevant to the given context in relation to this point, that this is how the issue is being seen here. And then link, we just conclude off by saying that since this is the issue, this is the problem that we are facing in interpretation. The question is about interpretation, so we come back to the question after writing everything, that okay, given these issues, this is why we will not be able to interpret the data correctly. Now let's look at the model answer to see exactly how it can be put down in words. It is unclear how healthy and unhealthy work life balance has been measured, means operationalization issue. So, this is the point. For example, the graph does not tell us whether the students self reported their work life balance or whether a teacher judged it, for example. So, this is a relevant example. So, meaning that we have contextualized it, as I said, and also if the graph was truly representative of operationalization here, instead of healthy unhealthy mentioned on the x-axis, it would have been mentioned supposing teachers ratings for healthy unhealthy balance or self-reported ratings. Such information is not there, so it just makes it hard to trust the link shown between student anxiety and depression. We can, instead of using the word trust, also say reliability. We can question the reliability between student anxiety and depression. So that is the issue that we are facing in interpretation. We conclude of that way. So we link back to what is asked in the question. So 3 marker is as simple as that. Let's come to the next question. So if we move further into the booklet, we have source 2. As always, we just have to read carefully. I'll speed up a little to complete the video on time. I have limited time, but you follow the rule which I've given. Pause the video. Make sure you understand the source fully before you move ahead. So reflect on the source before moving towards the question. So there was this sample of 50 students who were asked to complete an online task that could take 6 hours a day, and they were asked not to use their computers, meaning that they had to focus only on the task, no other tasks were allowed. 25 students were there in a group who had to do this 6 hours of work, and then there was like a control group in that there were 25 students. And then all of them, those who had done this online task and then those who hadn't done it, the control group had to take a mental health test out of 30 marks. And what we are expecting is those who were not doing too much of online work, they would have better mental health. So whether this has been found or not is represented on the table. So we can look at the title of the table, mental health scores in relation to screen time. Lot of descriptive statistics then we can see on the table. And to reiterate, if you feel I'm going fast at any point, just pause and read carefully. The paper is a little long, so to stay within time, I'll have to move faster. But make sure you're going ahead only after understanding what is there on the source material. So they've given us the range by giving us maximum and minimum mental health scores out of 30 for each group. On immediate inspection, we can see that those who have no screen time, definitely their range is wider and their upper limit is higher. So they seem to have better mental health. This is just a crude inspection. Mean wise, also much higher than that of the high screen time group, means those who did the online task, their mental health scores are quite low out of 30. Those with no screen time have it relatively much higher. Same thing for all the descriptive statistics, median as well as standard deviation. Standard deviation as such does not give like a central tendency measure. It does not represent the typical mental health outcome of the group, but it does show variability. So variability is a little lower in the high screen time group, which is a more positive indicator, but then again, it's not that much higher also in the no screen time group. So we have done a broad inspection. Now we have a box and whisker plot, which is given next on the next page. In this box and whisker plot, the same things have been represented. Like we can see whatever was on the table, those values have been represented, but we know why box and whisker is important, so that we can judge skew mainly. Skew and overlap, these two things we want to look out for in box and whisker. If you're having difficulty following what I'm talking about, like I told you in the beginning, you need a background on all your data analysis before you begin with this. You can just revise that. Okay, so we have the minimum maximum values, we have the median, we have the mean, and we have the mode. So we have all the values given to us on the box and whisker plot. If we see the y-axis clearly, the mental health scores are there, and then we know box and whisker plots are highly standardized. Always the median is going to be represented as a line within the box itself. Whiskers are going to cover the minimum to the maximum range of values. So we can inspect the box and whisker carefully before coming to the question. This is again a static question. We can think of it as semi-static because the source is going to vary, but the question is always going to be this. Analyze the findings from source 2 and give a conclusion. This is a 6 marker. I would recommend anywhere say between 200 to 220 words. This is not the official IB word count. This is what I'm recommending. I'm not aware of any official word count being released as of now. Based on my experience of the past syllabus, I'm recommending this. That for 6 marks, usually what is justified is this word range. Now, should we include, like the first question that will come, should we include data from both the table and the box and whisker plot into the answer? See, the data is overlapping. What is on the table is only on the plot. So of course you will be end up, like having all of the data, whatever you're considering it is from the table or box and whisker. But like I said, what we see over or beyond what is on the table in the graph is the skew. And I'm sorry, I wrote whisker, I meant overlap. So what I would advise is from the table, you look at the exact values. For example, mean is given precisely here, 11.6. When you look at it in the box and whisker, it becomes a little obscured. What is the exact value? Like 11.6, you might not be able to read very clearly. Also, because median is the main point of focus, like median is 10, that is very clearly demarcated on box and whisker. Mean is not like clearly marked out. So use the table to look at precise values. That is what I'll recommend. But then when it comes to analyzing the skew of the data set, like is it right or left skewed, please read that on the box and whisker. You can make it out from the table also. I know you can compare the relative positions of mean, median, and mode to make out that. But still, I would say the box and whisker gives you a very good visual inspection so that you don't go wrong with the skew. So I would recommend taking it from there. And overlap is possible with box and whisker. So those two things I would suggest you take it from the graph. Numbers, quantities, because you might get confused in box and whisker, though it's given here also, just take them from the table. Now, how you should organize and all. The answer, before we look at the model answer, I'll just give you a structure. Like I said, take from table and box plot. So my simple strategy would be, first I will describe what all is being seen on the table, one paragraph on that for neatness. Next paragraph, what we are seeing in the box and whisker plot, and then finally a conclusion. In the mark scheme, there is weightage for a conclusion. So make sure you give that. Conclusion just means um, the claim which is given, like they've asked on the question also. Is it supported or not? That is what we have to give in the conclusion. Given whatever we are seeing on the table and box and whisker, what would we conclude? Are we supporting the claim or not? So that would be my third paragraph. So always I would divide this question's answer into three paragraphs in this way. So that helps me to organize very easily and even I remain focused. Needless to say, be very contextualized in each. The same thing which I told you for the three marker. Don't give general things. Make sure you keep using terms like mental health, healthy, unhealthy, work life balance, anxiety, depression. Keep being relevant to the situation which is given. Don't give generically. For example, don't say the means are very different from each other, so there might be a significant difference. What means are you talking about? Which groups, which means, on which variables are the means? Make sure you are mentioning that. Okay, so be very, very specific. To make this more clear, let's look at the answer. I won't be able to read it entirely, it's long, so you can take a screenshot. I'll read out the key points. When we analyze source 2, we see there are clear differences. Of course, mean is the first thing we'll compare because, after all, these are mental health scores on a test. This is interval data. So, the first thing I would do is a mean comparison. 11.6 in the high screen time group. Please see how context is being given. The groups are being named, not general mean is high, low, which mean, which group, that is there. Median is also specified because two measures of central tendency were on the table, and no screen time group. Okay, so clearly we are seeing in high screen time group, it was a lower mental health mean and median that was seen. And in the box plot, we see there is no overlap. I told you to keep a separate paragraph, and indeed it is. It's just that because this particular section is relevant to mean, so I've given it here. Non-overlapping boxes indicate significance. See what is there? On the table, they did not give us significance. Otherwise, what you'll see on tables, an asterisk is there, and then they will suggest below something like, say, right? Or then we can say significance is there. But in this particular table, which they have released in the specimen paper, they haven't given any indication of significance. So we have no other way. We have to look at the box plot. In the box plot, when we see that there is non-overlapping boxes, we cannot say with certainty that there is significance. It's a strong indication. So you can see how it is worded: strongly suggests, not that there is a strong significance. We are not putting it that way because we don't have the probability values. Okay, so this paragraph is about table values. I want to reiterate, it's just that why we are taking the boxes point is to support significance, which we are not getting to see on the table. So it does seem, looking at the box plot, that there is a significant, meaning population applicable difference between mental health scores of groups which spend a lot of time online and which don't. Think of it this way: you don't need to write immediately, but you will have to write in the conclusion. So keep thinking about the larger claim in your mind. Once you write about the central tendencies difference, what is it telling you about the larger claim? Just think about that. Okay, then of course standard deviation is also there on the table. We can't just neglect that. So, definitely there's a greater variability. I had pointed out on the table also. When technology is not used, there is greater variability. There's nothing to assess further in this. It's not a very drastic difference that we can say that, variability is so broad that we need to reconsider whether the differences might be only because of chance. So, there's no further comment, just making sure to mention standard deviation. Now, some of you might feel, why didn't we mention the range when maximum and minimum value is given? It would just be redundant. Standard deviation is the superior measure. We have mentioned what that is showing about variability. Why go back to the crude measure of the range when we have a better measure? Okay, so this much comment is enough. Do keep in mind we are restricted by a word count. We can't write about everything under the sun. Now, coming to box plot interpretation. Box plot is right skewed for the no screen time group. You can take a look at it again. Clear right skew is there here. If you look at the box versus the whisker of the no screen time group, you will see a right skew. Whereas in the high screen time group, you don't see this right skew. The box and the whisker are looking proportionate in that case. So, what does it indicate when there's a right skew? Again, contextualizing it, there is a longer tail of a few exceptional scores, which shows that even without technology, health outcomes are not uniformly excellent. Some people seem to benefit more from no screen time than others. So when people are not doing that 6 hours online task, some people are benefiting more in terms of mental health. Their scores are turning out to be better than others. So it's not like everyone benefits a lot or everyone benefits very less by not using too much technology. There is variability. We can also speculate why that variability might be there. That will help us to be more contextualized and relevant. So one or two examples, just brainstorm. You've learned about technology after all in the content. So you could specify something like inherent stress of the academic task, or some people might have natural anxiety unrelated to the academic task. So those things might be causing this skew. Those might be causing lack of uniformity. I strongly recommend you give examples like this when you write. Because after all, that helps you to make things relevant. Otherwise, your answer becomes generic. So this is one thing we are realizing. Second thing is significant individual variation is there again because of the skew. So it might be some students have some resilience or protective factors. How this is different from the previous point is here we are trying to say that uniformity is not there. So maybe technology is not the only factor that affects individuals in terms of mental health. There can be other things also, their own resilience, for example. Again, you've learned about mental health also in the content. So from there, you'll be able to generate ideas. So this is what we are coming to know from the box plots. What we do constantly, I want to emphasize, contextualize, keep the larger claim in mind. We keep talking about that. That's what makes for a superior answer. Weaker answers are generic. Just reading what is on the graph, not thinking about the claim at all, not linking back interpretations to the claim. Those are weak answers. Now, coming to the conclusion. Given whatever we read at the table and in the box plots, what can we say? 6 hours of screen based time does result in worse mental health, seems significant because, like we saw on the box plots, the non overlap which was there, and definitely directly supports the claim. But the right skew data gives a caveat or a slight consideration that we need to make. Technology might be just one of the factors, not the only factor which is influencing people's mental health. Okay, so though no doubt it's experimental, it's not just correlational data, but still there seem to be other potentially influencing factors. Otherwise, that variability would have not been there in the data. In terms of structuring more finely, like I gave you how the paragraphs are structured, but if you want to know within the paragraph how structuring is there, mostly it's a peel format only. So you don't need to think too much about that. For example, if you see here, point is because of the table we are getting to see lot of group differences, then example or explanation is to say what group differences we are seeing, like between means, median and all, and then link is to connect back that okay, this is the variability or this is the significant difference that we are seeing in both the groups. Same thing you will see here. Point is there is a right skew in the data. Explanation and examples again linking back to the claim that okay, if there's a right skew, what does it mean in terms of technology and mental health? And then link is okay, so in terms of the claim, maybe there are other factors that also playing a role. So everywhere throughout this paper, kind of peel format is only followed. That is very helpful. We do it in all the papers. The broader organization, I would say, is more important than within the paragraph. Within the paragraph, it's mainly about being contextual. Let's come to the next question. There's another source given. A researcher carried out a series of focus groups with students, focus groups meaning group interviews, from four different schools to assess how online learning during school closures during the COVID 19 pandemic negatively affected their mental health. And then, of course, because it's qualitative data, focus groups. So then they had to analyze the transcripts. They did specifically inductive content analysis, meaning from specific ideas in the data that they got, they induced to larger patterns. And they came across the following themes. Isolation from friends leads to feeling missed out, anxiety, lonely, and extensive time leads to online. Extensive time with parents leads to frequent arguing and feelings of being misunderstood. Online learning feels unreal and detached from real education. So many different findings about the impact of online technology on people have been given. None of them are directly related to mental health as such, but they do suggest something about mental health. Like, in the sense, anxiety, loneliness means mental health is declining. Arguing with parents and all, that is not about online but parental interaction. This is can be causative for using more technology, and then even that can lead to poor outcomes. And then online learning feels unreal, detached. It can impact mental health, like it can become difficult to focus for students, and then doing poorly in academics could lead to anxiety and depression. So indirect connections we can draw with mental health. The question is, discuss how the researcher could improve the credibility of the findings in source 3. So again, a static question. Here it is for 3 marks again. I'm sorry, it's for 6 marks again. So again, I would give that word limit of 200 to 20 words, Peel format. Here I'll tell you what the organization can be, given that it is a qualitative source rather than a table and graph source. And again, one more thing, the question is about improving credibility rather than interpreting what was there, right? The previous one was about conclusion or interpretation. This one is about credibility. Here, I would say, because it is for 6 marks, give two suggestions. Also, give three suggestions. You can take a screenshot if you need to, each worth 2 marks. Please do not equate 2 marks with 2 points or two sentences. This is a proper mini essay question. A 6 mark question is like a mini essay, meaning that you have to elaborate enough to get 2 marks. More than how much you're going to write per point or how many sentences you're going to give, the content being contextualized and relevant, that is going to earn you marks. So think of it as 3 peel points that you need to give to earn your 6 marks. Okay, and that is the broad structure. So because there are three suggestions that you're going to make, just organize it into 3 paragraphs. Okay, three, like I told you, peel paragraphs. In each, take one suggestion for improvement, and then just keep on in the peel format linking it to anxiety, depression, mental health, the claim that we had seen. That's why reading the claim carefully was so important. We need to keep linking back to that, and of course to the whole stem given here. Now you must be wondering, but how do I think of the improvement points? Again, you've learned research methods. In that, you've learned about focus groups. As a qualitative method, you've learned about inductive content analysis, going from specific patterns to broad themes of identification. What are the problems or weaknesses that you have learned about in these? Think of those weaknesses. Once you can identify the weaknesses, you can easily suggest how the weaknesses should be overcome. That is only called suggesting improvement. Speaking about how weaknesses can be overcome, that's all. So think of 3 points like that. So keeping this in mind, let's look at the model answer. Okay, researcher can improve the credibility by using 3 concrete strategies. Don't have to give this introductory line, but it is effective. Like, you just signposting to the examiner that now we are going to discuss 3 relevant improvement areas. Always point, name directly first what we are going to be talking about. In qualitative weaknesses, you have definitely learned about bias. And one thing which can help rectifying bias, you have learned about that also, member checking. Member checking means participant checking. Once the researchers have finished inducting, they found their themes, give some examples that are relevant to what is mentioned here. Like, say they have found isolation leads to anxiety, or online learning feels unreal. So for these, once they have written it, they could just create a summary document in simple words that students can understand, and they can ask students to just check or to just verify that this is only what they meant to say, what the researchers have ultimately concluded in their themes. So we made a point that member checking should be done. Then we have given example or explanation how it could have been done in this case. And then we just link off by saying what is the improvement exactly that is being done here. Question is asking about improvement. So how does this improve the data that has been collected? Because it strengthens credibility. Researchers' bias will not be a part of the themes, because in case the themes they have formulated are biased, the students will point out that that is not what they have meant. The researchers will be able to revise the theme and bias will be eliminated. As simple as that. The remaining paragraphs also in the same way. Like, one more suggestion is triangulation. Again, you've learned that in focus groups, researchers can be biased in their data collection. So maybe they could use one more method. Along with the focus group, they could also use a survey and students who have undergone, for example, online learning. So again, taking one relevant point from here, they could be asked about, do they feel isolated from friends when they're engaging in online learning, like they don't have classmates at that time. So these type of questions can be asked. This is the example we are giving. And to link back, like how does this improve? If we use this survey and it shows high agreement, it will help to cross validate what has been found in the focus groups. We will be able to be sure that what has been found in the focus groups is credible or correct. Finally, peer debriefing or external audit can be done. Again, you've learned about this for qualitative methods. How it can be done? One more qualified researcher can join in with the current researcher, and whatever transcripts have been prepared by this researcher, they could code it independently, in fact, blindly, without knowing the original themes. And then, if they also come up with similar themes, of course, themes are verbal, they are word oriented. No two people can come up with the same words describing the theme, but they can be very similar. If that is the case, like the other researcher also identifies something like family conflict, this researcher has identified uh, parents interaction can lead to feeling misunderstood, so say that the research also says family conflict. Or this researcher has identified online learning feels unreal, so that the researcher says something very similar, detachment from school. Then we can say that bias is not there. Multiple researchers are coming to the same conclusion, so the findings are credible and they are rooted in the data. They are not coming from, like, say, a top down bias that is operating from the researcher's previous experiences. So this is how you can answer the 6 marker. Finally, coming to the key question, which is going to be based on two further sources. I want to show you the question before we look at the sources. So this is the final question. You can take a screenshot. This is the first page of the model answer, and this is the second page of the model answer. The final question is always going to be about to what extent we can conclude that the claim is correct, which we saw originally. And then we have to support it from any sources between 2 and 5. Only the first source we will not be allowed to take. Remaining, whatever we have seen, we can use that for support. Very quickly, we'll look at sources 4 and 5 because we haven't seen them before. 4 is just a correlational analysis between mental health and hours students spend doing work on laptops. So realistic type of study because it's correlational. First, this correlation was established. Then students were made to take mental health tests, and in these tests, measures of mental health included cognitive dulling, depression, general anxiety, and OCD. So, how much they use their laptops was correlated with each of these measures on the mental health test, and all the correlation coefficients are given on the right. Immediately, when we are reading the source, we can see these are high correlation coefficients because they are close to 1, and these both are low because they are close to 0. So, depression and anxiety seem to be particularly related with positively with hours spent on the laptop. Cognitive dulling and OCD, not so much. Let's look at source 5. This figure shows mental health tests with regards to hours of continuous screen time in three areas: gaming, streaming, and smartphone use. So, people have given mental health tests, and then that has been linked with these three areas: gaming, streaming, smartphone use. And higher mental tests have been found to indicate better mental health. You can read the graph, take your time to read it. I'll just quickly show like one example of what we should be looking at. Those who've been gaming, the more the number of hours that they keep on gaming, the worse that their mental health gets. We can see it from the declining line. So in this way, you can see the results for the light line streaming also, and for the dark line smartphone use also. Now coming to the question. Before we look at the model answer, some general guidelines how you should answer this one. One, make sure which sources you want to discuss. You can take a breadth approach and include all the sources, or you can take a depth approach, take 2 or 3 and take them in detail. Sorry, not 2 or 3, 3, because they've said at least 3. My recommendation, take only 3, minimum number. Depth approach, not breadth. I don't advise a breadth approach anytime. Don't take 4 sources unnecessarily and just touch upon them. Take 3 and go into the depth of them. Which 3 you should take, that will be determined by your knowledge of research methods. it is subjective. Every student is stronger with different things. For example, if you're weak on qualitative research methods, many students are found to be weak on that. Leave out source 3. I think source 3 was the focus groups one, exclude that. But say if you are strong in qualitative research but weak in interpreting something like, say, box plots, box whisker plots are not clear to you, leave out source 2 in that case. So I would suggest take three only, the strongest ones. And how do you know which are your strongest ones? If you can critically analyze, especially if you can gather weaknesses. So if you're good with weaknesses of qualitative research, take in the qualitative source. If you're good in interpreting and critically evaluating a box plot, take the second source that way. So in that way, make a choice of your three best sources, if of which you're most knowledgeable, in-depth approach on them. Also very important here, use your own knowledge. Own knowledge doesn't mean your own speculations and assumptions, your own whims, whatever you feel you can write. Own knowledge just means what you have learned in the course. You have learned about the impact of technology on mental health, both positive and negative. Both are part of your IB curriculum. That knowledge you have to use here. Do you have to use specific studies or theories which are given? No. There's no such requirement. General concepts that you have learned, you can use those. General research findings you can use. But if you want to use a specific study, say for example you want to use Sparrow et al. Or Blacker et al., very popular in technology, use them. Go ahead. That's great. Or any particular theory you want to use, go ahead, but not necessary. That's all I want to say. So finalize your three sources before you write, your best sources. Finalize the best content you know. You have been seeing the claim from the beginning, and by now you've worked so much on the claim. From whatever you've learned in technology, what will be most relevant to the claim? I would suggest think of 2 points that will be most relevant. What's coming to my mind is positive effects. The claim seems to be very skewed according to me. It doesn't talk about any positive effects of technology at all on mental health, only negative effects. So I would like to make some argument about positive effects also, to show how this is a very reductionist or a one-sided claim. Also, I've learned so much about research methods, how they tend to be very weak in this area, like a lot of self-reporting and all is there. And I can see similar things in the sources given. So that would be one more thing I would like to use from my knowledge of the content area in this essay. Now, how do we organize this essay? Peel format in every paragraph. Overall, your target, my recommendation, 600 to 700 words. Try to go on the higher side, I would recommend, not because we just want to create a farce in front of the examiner that, oh, we have written a longer one so we are more knowledgeable. The greater word count just helps you to give a more detailed and contextualized analysis. That's what I believe, so that's why. And rest, I told you I'm not having too much time for this video. If you need to see how to organize a 15 marker with introduction and conclusion and everything, please watch my previous video, paper 2 section B. In that, how I have told you to organize a 15 marker, like, because that was exclusively dedicated to the 15 marker, I have given a lot of nuances on how you should cover 15 marker. All those rules can be applied here. So remaining now, whatever I discuss will be with the help of this model answer. For preparation, what I've told you till now should be broadly enough. If you need even more fine suggestions, please watch that section B video which I have put up for paper 2. Okay, now how do we begin with this answer? The claim can be reiterated in light of the evidence. All the evidences are showing definitely there is a possible link between technology and mental health, but we say possible. None of them are guaranteeing, none of them are having foolproof methods, they just don't exist. So we can't give a certain claim that there is an effect of technology on mental health, but there might be. Then we need to name the sources which we are going to take. From an examiner's POV, they have to read so many answers. How will they know which sources you are taking? Every student can take different sources and a different number. So in the introduction only, make it clear which are the ones that you're taking. I've just taken 3, 4 and 5 randomly. You can take any. And what is going to come ahead in the essay, you can just orient or signpost the examiner towards that we are going to look at the critical limitations of all these sources, how they are not able to establish causation mainly, How I came to this idea, because throughout we kept on seeing these are correlational, potential confounding variables are there, third variables are there. So the common problem I saw in all of them was causation. So that I will definitely be discussing. And in terms of what other knowledge I'm going to take, I'm going to talk about positive role of technology, which is missing from these sources, how this is an imbalanced view. I'm going to point out that. And critical analysis of research methods I've already hinted. So what is my introduction? Naming the sources I'm taking, indicating which knowledge I'm going to use, and just telling the examiner what is going to come ahead. Then my organization is mainly by the source. Which source I'm taking first is the one I feel I can discuss strongest. My issue is around causation. Main issues of causation I found in source 4. In that, strong positive correlations are indicated in some places, but how do we know that they are causes? They are only correlates. It could be a reverse direction, bidirectional ambiguity I'm indicating first. It could be that people are anxious and depressed to begin with. That's why they are using technology too much and not the other way around. Or there could be a third variable, academic pressure, or a school workload that could lead students to be using a lot of technology, which is not considered in this study. So very strongly, cause effect relationship is not established in this source. So my whole paragraph in the PEL format is about source 4. Then coming to source 3, same thing, PEL format. Please pause the video and read if you feel I'm going fast. Here also, same issue, confounding variables could be there. In the COVID pandemic, if we are seeing that people are spending too much time online and that is why they are facing mental health issues, the pandemic itself is the biggest confounding variable. Because of the pandemic, they might be feeling stressed, anxious, and all those things. So, how can we neglect such a big thing and say it is only because of technology? So, that is the argument here. Then coming to source 4 again, I told you I'm going to talk about knowledge of research methods that I have taken here. I come to source 5 also, but because right now it becomes relevant. These two sources most prominently have self-report data. So first I've taken that. That's okay. We can alternate between knowledge and sources. We don't have to cover all the sources first and then all the knowledge. Whatever helps for a most effective discussion, we can do it that way. So coming to source 4 specially, students themselves have estimated the hours spent on homework on the laptop and they have only answered the mental health test. Both cases they can underreport or overreport. Why they might do that, we should give some reason. Social desirability. They don't want to say that their mental health is poor. So that can reduce validity. In source 3, which we discussed previously, group dynamics, because it's a focus group interview, everyone has to talk in front of each other. So they might just try to match what the peers are saying because they fear being reprimanded if they say something else. So again, what they report about their mental health might just be a replication of what their peers are saying, not what they truly experience. So this is how research methods in technology are most of the time self-report oriented, and that is a big problem. Then coming to source 5. Again, cause effect issues. When we talk about technology in education and we show that, like we saw in the line graphs, the more someone's gaming or streaming, that is leading to poorer mental health. What type of technology is being used, that is considered, but then every technology is different. Some of it is interactive, engaging, like gaming. Others is just passive, like streaming. So that is good that they have shown all these varieties, but they have treated all the screen time as equivalent. They have given lines separately for all of them, but they have not tried to analyze how these different features or this different nature of all usage of technology is having a differential impact on mental health. So that is where it is lacking. So it just weakens any general conclusion about technology as a larger picture. Finally, like I told you, I will be taking in positive effects of technology to show how this is reductionist. So, what I have learned in the course content, that many times technology can be beneficial to students. For example, it can create equity in access to information. Those who cannot access information because of lack of resources, today it's freely available online. So, it gives them a fair chance to learn, which can improve their mental health. It can reduce academic pressure on them. Or students who have disabilities, applications or softwares of technology which are available to assist them is making it very easy for them to learn, which was not possible before. So to overlook these benefits that mental health can gain by technology and to just look at the bad effects like they've done in all the sources is an unbalanced and incomplete analysis. Finally, we do have to give a sound conclusion at the end. So we can say it is a one sided view which is partially supported based on flawed self reports. So, yes, we can say to some extent it is true, but we cannot give any negative, definitive conclusion. To say very strongly that only negative impact is there would be a very unwarranted, unjustified conclusion that we cannot give on the basis of the sources which are provided. So I'm sorry to make the video in a little bit of rush, but that is all that I have time for. I hope it has been helpful to you. If you have any doubts, any queries, you can leave it in the comments box below. And whenever I upload this on my website, I will leave a link in the description box. That's all for today, and I've covered all types of questions of the new syllabus by now, leaving the practicals question. I'll see if I can cover it in future. So I hope all these videos help you to prepare well for the new syllabus. All the best for your learning, and I'll try to see you soon with another helpful video. Goodbye.